In the dark London of 1888, a series of crimes spread panic throughout Whitechapel and left behind a mystery that more than a century later remains unsolved. Today, we talk about one of the most enigmatic murderers in history, Jack the Ripper. The second half of the 19th century turned London into the epicenter of the British Empire, but prosperity was not distributed evenly. In the Whitechapel neighborhood on the East End, misery was a daily occurrence. More than 70,000 people lived in cramped conditions, with extremely high rates of alcoholism, violence, and prostitution. It is estimated that there were about 1,200 officially registered prostitutes in the area, although the number of unregistered prostitutes was twice that. The streets were barely lit by gas lanterns. Factory smoke and fog made visibility almost zero, and the stench of nearby slaughterhouses permeated the air. It was the perfect setting for a killer who slipped into the darkness and attacked defenseless women. The case focuses on the so-called 5 canonical victims, although some experts believe Jack may have killed more women. Marianne Nichols, August 31st, 1888. Her body was found in Bucks Row. Her throat had been cut with 2 deep slashes and her abdomen had been cut open. This was the first sign that something different was happening. Annie Chapman, September 8th, found at the back of a house on Hanbury Street. Her abdomen was cut open and her uterus had been removed. This led to the theory that the killer had knowledge of anatomy. Elizabeth Stride, September 30th, found in Dunfield's yard. She had only one cut to her throat, suggesting that the killer may have been interrupted. Catherine Eddowes, September 30th, same night. The mutilation was brutal. Intestines exposed, face disfigured, and left kidney removed. Part of this organ would later be sent to the police in one of the most famous letters. Mary Jane Kelly, November 9th. The youngest victim, aged around 25, was found in her own room in Miller's Court. The crime was so heinous that the press described it as a spectacle of carnage. Her body was practically dismembered, with organs scattered across the bed and walls. These murders, so concentrated in a few months and with an unprecedented level of sadism, paralyzed the entire city. At this point in the story, the police didn't know what to do, but you do. Hitting the like button and subscribing helps solve this modern mystery called the algorithm. Between September and November of 1888, the police received more than 300 letters signed by Jack the Ripper, the alleged murderer. Most were pranks by citizens or journalistic fabrications, but 3 became legendary. The most famous is one called Dear Boss, in which the author mocked the police and signed his name as Jack the Ripper for the first time, promising more murders. The second letter was Saucy Jackie, a postcard that anticipated the double event of Stride and Eddowes on the same night. And finally, the most disturbing was the letter called From Hell, which arrived accompanied by half a human kidney preserved in alcohol, increasing panic in the city. However, many experts believe that most of these letters were forgeries by journalists seeking to sell more copies. Jack the Ripper was the first serial killer to be covered in real time by the press, marking a turning point in the way news was consumed. Newspapers sold thousands of extra copies every time a new victim appeared. And some even went so far as to invent fake letters from the killer to keep the morbid fascination alive. The London police, known as Scotland Yard, deployed dozens of officers and organized undercover patrols in Whitechapel. It was one of the first cases in which basic forensic techniques, such as crime scene photographs, were used. However, the investigation was hampered by a lack of coordination between different police divisions, media pressure, and the absence of modern tools such as fingerprinting and DNA analysis. The killer moved like a fish in water through the maze of narrow, dark streets, managing to disappear without a trace. The police did not yet use fingerprints, as they would not come into use in England until 1892. The witnesses were unreliable. Many were drunk or only saw shadows in the fog. After the murder of Catherine Eddowes, the police found graffiti on a nearby wall. "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Some investigators interpreted this as a clue about the killer, while others saw it as an attempt to blame the Jewish community, which was very present in Whitechapel. The commissioner himself ordered it to be quickly erased to prevent anti-Semitic riots. To this day, its meaning remains a mystery. The police failure to catch the killer contributed to his reputation as an urban ghost who could not be stopped. If this case has already made your hair stand on end, imagine what's coming next. Like it now, before it's too late. Although the official story mentions 5 women, some researchers suggest that Jack may have killed at least 11 in London. Before and after 1888, there were similar murders, with abdominal cuts and signs of mutilation, although it was never proven whether they were committed by the same person. Over the years, more than 100 suspects have been identified, but some names appear more frequently than others. Aaron Kosminski, a police barber with mental health issues, was one of the main suspects. Montague John Dreed, a lawyer and teacher, committed suicide shortly after the crimes, which fueled suspicion. Michael Ostrog, a Russian criminal, was also mentioned, and conspiracy theories even point to Prince Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson. In 2014, a team of researchers claimed to have found Aaron Kosminski's DNA on a shovel belonging to Catherine Eddowes. The media presented it as the case finally solved. However, forensic experts harshly criticized the investigation. The shawl had been contaminated after passing through too many hands over more than a century. The mystery again remains unsolved. Jack the Ripper is much more than a murderer. He is a modern myth. His was one of the first cases to receive massive media coverage at a time when the tabloid press was beginning to sell crime stories. He became a literary and cinematic character, from Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper to films such as From Hell, based on the comic book by Alan Moore. His figure has inspired dozens of works of fiction. There are even video games and plays that recreate his story. Today, Whitechapel organizes night tours that take visitors to to the sites of the murders, in a mixture of historical tourism and popular morbid fascination. What is disturbing is that Jack was not only real, but he achieved what few murders in history have. He remained invisible. His identity remains a mystery and will probably never be revealed, making him an eternal ghost in the collective memory. In this way, Jack became a symbol of the dark side of modernity and the most famous example of a serial killer who was never caught. Jack the Ripper not only murdered his victims, he also robbed an entire city of its peace and left us with an enigma that has stood the test of time. We may never know who he was, but his shadow reminds us that fear does not always need a face to be eternal.